Good day, viewers. In today's video, we are going to measure suspended concrete slab and all other items that are related to concrete slab. So we'll measure the concrete slab itself. We'll measure the concrete in slab itself. We'll also measure formwork and reinforcement in slab. What is our first floor slab detail? And what we have here is the first floor slab. This particular plan here, it shows the reinforcement in slab, the different types of reinforcement we have in slab. We can actually measure our concrete in slab from this drawing, and we can also measure our concrete in slab from this other drawing. You can measure it from our first floor layout. You can measure it from this drawing, whichever drawing. But I'll prefer this to the other drawing. So let's measure our concrete in slab on this drawing. Then we'll measure our reinforcement in slab on the other drawing. Okay, so what we have here now is our first floor slab layout. We've measured the beam on this layout, and what's left here is slab. So we have slab. Our slab, it goes this way, down that way. I think we have slab here too, down that way. But this place will be this is our stair hall, and this place will be empty. So the concrete will not cover this part of the building. This is our stair hall. So we will have an opening here. We're going to measure our concrete in slab with the aid of our slab plugin, concrete in slab plugin. You can also measure this using your area tool, but you will not be able to measure other items like formwork. So, but if you should use the plugin, it's going to be easy. You're just going to measure once, and you have your listing measured alongside your formwork measured alongside with your concrete work. So let's activate our slab plugin. As we all know, our concrete in slab here, suspended slab, is part of superstructure. So we open our superstructure folder, and what we have here is our concrete suspended slab. So I'm going to click on this to have access to the content of this folder. And what we have here is the plugin. As you can see, we have formwork, but the reinforcement plugin is not part of this. So I'm going to measure the reinforcement separately, the way we did for our beam the other time in the previous video. So the only thing we're able to measure with this plugin is just the concrete work and the formwork. So let's click on this to activate the plugin. As you can see here, the plugin is asking for the thickness of the slab, and from this plan, the thickness here is 150 mm. Let's see, written all over this layout: 150, 150, 150, 150. I'm going to click on 0.15, and this will be under our substructure folder, but not under reinforcement in beam. So I'm going to change the location. This should just be under superstructure folder. Then click on OK, and all we're going to do is just trace the boundaries of this layout. Let me put on my snap tool, to make the whole thing a lot more easier. Okay. Oh no, Ctrl Z. The slab, it goes this way, so I'm going to undo that. So undo, just click on Ctrl Z. Use Ctrl Z on your keyboard to undo. You can zoom in to have clearer view of what you are measuring. This is not accurate enough. Okay. It's easy, just click on the edges of the layout And with this, we are done with our concrete in slab. So I'm going to use the escape button to deactivate this plugin. Escape. Okay, so like I said the other time, this place is meant to be open. This is our stair hall, but you can't trace that directly this way because you have your concrete. Your concrete in slab, your concrete slab will cover the top of this beam here. So if you should measure it down this way, at the end of the day, this part will not be measured, and this should be part of our concrete slab, although the other space here will be empty. So what I'm going to do now is like we're going to deduct this space from what we just measured. I want to deduct this space. You can do that too on PLANSWIFT. All we need to do now is just right click on this measurement, right click. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my mouse. Just right click on this. So like I said, I want to right click on this, right click. Then we'll click on subtract from section. Subtract from section. Then we'll pick the points we want to subtract from this section. Let me zoom in. Let me turn off my snap too. It's not predicting the right point. Okay. To end this, I'll just click on escape, and I have my concrete in slab measured. With this, we're done with measurement of concrete in slab. What we're left with here is the formwork. So let's check. Let's check our takeoff summary. Takeoff summary. Concrete in slab measured. Formwork is also measured. We have two formworks there. The first one is formwork to side and soffit of suspended slab. And the last formwork there is formwork to side and soffit of suspended slab. So we have two formworks here. I'm going to delete one of these because they are the same. I'm going to delete the formwork to side and soffit of suspended slab with drop beam. We've measured everything that have to do with beam the other time. That has to do with beam. We've measured them. So let me delete this. Okay. So what we're left with now is reinforcement in slab. I want to measure that with the aid of the plugin we used the other time to measure our reinforcement in beam. Let me go back to our reinforcement detail. Plan with our reinforcement detail. Okay, this is it. The first floor slab detail. With what we have here, we have I think we have two types of reinforcement here. We have T10 and T12. T10 and T12. But the T10s and the T12 that we have, they are not of the same number. I can see this is 17 T12, while this is 16 T12. So we have to measure them separately. Because at the end of the day, after you've measured what you have on this plan, you have to multiply by the number of that reinforcement. So if you measure the whole thing together, we'll not be able to properly estimate the length of reinforcement. So I want to measure them one after the other. If we have, let's say, 5 reinforcement labeled 17 T12, we can measure them together. Since at the end of the day, we're going to multiply whatever we have there by 17. Let me reduce the size of this part so we have a better view. Okay, let me reduce this too. So the plugin we used the other time is under substructure. I'm going to access that plugin back this time around. I think the plugin is under Raft foundation, and this is a plugin reinforcement to, let me expand this to see the description. Reinforcement to concrete slab. Reinforcement to concrete slab. We are going to reactivate this for the different description of reinforcement we have on this plan. Let's start with this reinforcement. The first reinforcement here, which is 8T10O2 TB. TB here means you have the reinforcement is two. We have the reinforcement at the top and at the bottom. Top and bottom. So multiply this by 2, then by 8, because we have 8 numbers of that reinforcement. But before we commence measurement, we have to first of all scale this drawing. We have to scale this drawing before we start measuring. So let me use this scale. Distance from this point to this point, which is 3.825. I'm going to scale that out now. 3.825. 3.825. From this point down to this point. Let me scale another horizontal reinforcement, 3.225. Let me scale that. 3.225. 3.225. Okay. Then let's cross-check our scale before we start measuring. Dimension 2. Let's check the distance from this point down to this point. Okay, I think our scaling is accurate. So with this, we can start measuring. But before then, I want to put off this description of the scale and dimension, so it won't disturb our measurement of reinforcement in slab. Just click on this to do that. Click on this to deactivate or to put it off. Okay, oh, sorry, this is it. Click on this. Yeah. Now let's activate our reinforcement plugin. I told you guys in the previous video that this plugin will always measure reinforcement in kg. So at the end of the day, you divide whatever you have by 1000 to get the value of reinforcement in ton. This is let me name this. Let me name this T10. 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 Since the description there is T10. Number of reinforcement here is what? Is 8. According to this description, we have 8 numbers of that reinforcement here. That's 8 number. And since what we have in the description is TB, I want to click on 2. TB. Then the bar width for 10 mm is 0.616. Then click on OK. So now the next thing is how to locate the reinforcement on the plan right from the description. So to locate the reinforcement, just trace this down to the end of the arrow. Then when you get to the end of the arrow, you will now trace this down this way, down that way. So this is the reinforcement. So we'll have this thick black dot. That's the location of the reinforcement. So this is the reinforcement. The reinforcement spans from this point down to this point. And see, let me trace it again. So you trace from this point down to the end of this arrow. Then you trace from this point down that way to the end of the arrow there. So this reinforcement here, it spans from this point down to this point. That's the interpretation of this other arrow here. It spans from this point down to this other point. And this is the reinforcement itself. The thick black line here is the reinforcement. So we're going to trace the reinforcement from this point to this point, and with that we are done with that particular reinforcement. So let's measure it. We're going to start from this point down to this point. Then we click on escape. So with that, we're done with that T10, 8T10. So let's check through if we have any other 8T10. We can measure them together. Let's check if we have any other 8T10. Do we have any other 8T10? I don't think so. I think that's the only 8T10 we have on this plan. Let's pick another type of reinforcement. The next reinforcement there is 17T12. 17T12. And it is BB. 17T12. T12. T12. Number of reinforcements here is 17. Top and bottom. What we have there is BB. Admin is only B. Then we'll click on 1. But what we have there is BB. It is double at the bottom. So we'll click on 2. And the bar width here is, since what we're measuring or what we want to measure is 12 mm, the bar width here is 0.888. Then you click on OK. So now let's locate this reinforcement. Locate the reinforcement. In locating that reinforcement, I'm going to trace that reinforcement from this point down that way to the end of the arrow. So this is the end of the arrow. Then if you check this other arrow here, you discover that we have a thick black dot here, which signifies the reinforcement itself. So this is the reinforcement. That's the reinforcement. And the reinforcement spans from this point down to this point. That's how the arrangement will be. But what we are interested in here is the reinforcement itself, which is this thick black line here. All we're going to do now is just trace this black line. Let's trace it from this point down that way to that point, this point, down to this point. Then click on escape. So with that, we're done with that reinforcement. Do you have any other 17T12? Let's check. 17T12. I think that's the only 17T12 on this plan. Okay, let's measure one more reinforcement, and that will be all. I believe with this, you guys should be able to measure the remaining reinforcements on this plan. So the next reinforcement here is 16T12. 16T12. Let's activate our reinforcement plugin. This is T12 too. T12. Number of reinforcement here is 17. What we have according to the description is what is TT top. So I'm going to click on 2. And the bar width is 0.888. Then I'll click on OK. So we'll trace this down that way. 16T12. Let's trace it. Let's look at the reinforcement. So this is the end of this arrow. Then we'll check this down that way, down. Okay. So this is the reinforcement. This is the reinforcement. So I'm going to trace the reinforcement from this point down to this point. And with that, click on escape. We're done with measurement of that reinforcement. I want to measure other reinforcements same way. Let's check if we have any other 16T12. I think we have another 16T12 here. We have two 16T12 here too. And they are all double reinforcements. Let's locate this reinforcement. Okay, this is it. So I'm going to trace that from this point. From this point down. Oh, I have to reactivate it.
Removed it now.
So let's trace this down from this point, but we have to reactivate the plugin. Let me locate it and activate it. 17T12. Oh, I think we didn't input the this properly, the right description. This is okay. Oh, it's T12. It's also T12. Let's click on this to reactivate it. So we'll trace the reinforcement from this point down to this point and click on next. I think we have another 16 to 12. 16 to 12. We have two here. This is the first 16 to 12 on this side. Draw from this point down to this point. Click on next. Then we have another 16 to 12, which is this particular reinforcement. I'm going to draw it from this point down that way to this point. So with this, we are done with measurement of reinforcement in slab. I believe with this, you guys should be able to measure the remaining reinforcement in slab. See you in the next video. In the next video, we're going to measure everything. Okay, we're going to measure lintel, concrete in lintel, formwork to lintel, and reinforcement in lintel. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.